once you have a little measure of healing and you feel that and it feels so good, that's what motivates you. It's just getting them over that hump of getting that first little measure of healing that motivates them. Does that make sense?
It does. And the difficulty would be in that is, as I think you mentioned this earlier, is if you don't know you're suffering, or if you don't know you're being abused or damaged,
Right.
it's hard to take that first step. And sometimes there's some people who have been abused, and maybe you've seen this, and their life is okay afterwards. They may need help,
Mm-hmm.
but they're like, okay, I can handle my life being this way, as bad as it is, right? Because they've soothed themselves to say, okay, this is a new baseline.
Right. It's their new normal.
It's their new normal, right? Like, I'm causing chaos. I don't have peace, but I'm okay with it because I have a car. I have a house.
Yeah, they don't see that they're doing anything. They don't see these big traumatic things in their life anymore. So they think it's not. I know people who I have people in my life that are there, and they don't realize that the trauma that they experienced was really bad, and they have success in their life. They have success and they're good people. They're not bad people. They don't act out the way I did, you know. And yet so they're just like, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Imagine what their life would be like though if they did go deeper and do some healing. Wow.
Yeah, someone told me that they were fine and they're still committing like physical acts, right? Like they're still damaging things, still damaging property. And they were so like, no, I'm fine. I can handle this. I'm like, but you're being not only verbally destructive, now you're physically destructive,
Ooh.
right?
A lot of blind spots.
I think so. And I mentioned to him, I was like, what would happen if you're in a relationship with a woman and you have one of those outbursts? Women in general, not as strong, not as physically big as a man, right? I told him that is the concern. The concern is fine, you're okay with the chaos in your life. And to be up between you and me, Lisa, if someone is destroying their life, I rather them do that than destroy someone else's life,
Absolutely. Yeah, I
right?
agree. I agree.
Right? But
Mhm.
now you're impacting, right? And if you were to bring someone into your life, it's not like you can turn on and off your trauma triggers or how you lash
No.
out to the trauma. So take us through your healing journey because you described um how you went through a lot of things and maybe what you went through can help the people like the ones I gave the example to or other people who know someone because I believe we all know someone that needs the help but they're a little bit reluctant because as you mentioned they have certain successes in their life which masks what they really need.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing that was enlightening for me really is getting self-awareness because what that did is it helped me become aware of my triggers. Because what you're describing with your this guy is what's scary in that case, what came to me is what if he gets triggered? If he's in that situation and he gets triggered, because these triggers come out of nowhere and they don't make any sense. I could stand here and get triggered over something, and you're looking at me going, what's going on, right? Because it doesn't trigger you. And so for me, that was really big because when I was in survival mode, I was constantly being triggered. It didn't take much at all to trigger me. And so I was constantly, it was interesting. I was constantly upset. I was constantly tight, constantly so tight all the time that even when I would just pick up my phone, when my ex-husband would call me, he would say, "Did you just run to the phone because of my breathing?" Because I was just so tight all the time. And so I am a believer in the first thing that helped me on my healing journey was being self-aware and learning self-awareness about myself. And because I would what was disturbing to me is I didn't realize I was being triggered. I would act out and I'm watching these people look at me like I'm crazy. So imagine that you're losing control of your behavior and it's not okay, but you can't stop it. And then you're looking at people who are looking at you like you're nuts, which just escalates the trigger, right? It's awful. Um, and so getting the self awareness helps you catch all of that. It makes you pay attention to your own behavior as well as others so that you can start managing yourself much better. And I have shared this story on my podcast, but it was a little over, it was over a year ago. For the first time, I walked through a trigger for the first time from the beginning to the end. And it was almost like an out of body experience where I was watching myself. And it was so empowering. I got to witness myself get triggered. I got to witness myself shut my mouth and not react and take a long pause. And then I was in a safe place with my husband, and I could just, this is where I realized I was being triggered. I was just starting to spout off, and it was not making any sense what was going on in my head. And then I realized I was being triggered. And when I get triggered, I want to self sabotage. So I stopped the situation and I realized it. And it was really empowering because, like I said, it was almost like I was above watching myself. And I found out the root reason why I was triggered, which we're triggered for a reason. It's not just we wake up one day and we're just triggered for no reason. I found the root reason why I was triggered. So that trigger is no longer part of my life. I literally walked through it, saw what it was, made a good decision out of it, understood why I was triggered, and went and took care of what I needed to take care of.
So your
So
reaction to your triggers was self-sabotage. So yours was inward, it wasn't outward.
correct. It was always inward, always, always inward. I mean, I might, back in the day, I used to joke about this. It's not funny, but I used to be able to shred people with my tongue. My ex-husband was like, you can write a letter to make a grown man cry, you know. So I learned a long time ago to quit doing that because I hated cleaning up that mess. But then it went inward. It went inward, and it was something that I was going to do that was going to damage myself.